gentlemen, live from the Gleneagles Hotel, Killarney, please welcome Brendan Grace.
I can always tell by the enthusiasm how long I'll be on, so I'd like to finish off now with that. Years ago, we used to be terrified talking about the facts of life and things like that to kids because we didn't know, really and truly. But it's called biology nowadays. That's it. They know it all. They learn it in school. No need for us to tell them. But by God, when I think of the lies we were told. The places we were supposed to have come from. That's right, children. I wouldn't eat cabbage until I was about 23 years of age. For fear I'd leave some child homeless. That's right, children. That's right. Now, I was found under a head of cabbage, kids. Isn't that funny, huh? Your Uncle Brendan was found under a head of cabbage. My sister was found in a matchbox. And most of my cousins were found in a rhubarb patch. There wasn't a natural birth in our family for as long as I can remember. And it was all lies. I don't know why they bothered. Ridiculous. And there was a woman next door to us. Now, I lived in the heart of Dublin, in a very, very special part of Dublin. We lived in a little semi-detached house. Well, it was detached, really. You know, it was on its own, I suppose. It was falling away from the rest of the street. And the woman next door to us was on the pill. It's very hard to imagine that. When I was a child, she was on the pill. God forgive us all, she was on the pill. For 14 years, she was on the pill before she realised she was taking aspirin. She'd 17 children, but she never had any headaches all during that time. So I suppose it only goes to show that God never closes one door, but he opens another. And true. And I really had a smashing childhood. When I think about the kids next door to us, if you can visualise the situation. I mean, they, by the way, next door, the people next door, the woman next door to us, they had a little backyard, and we used to look out the window. I can always remember looking out, and they had a hen in the backyard, a little chicken running up and down, and which was unusual. Now, if you can imagine, you know, to have, you know, in the heart of Dublin, to have a farm type of an animal outdoors, or indeed anything you could eat, to keep it outdoors was, you know, taking a risk. So I remember, I knew it was a hen. I knew well it was a hen. But my father, Lord rest his soul, my father actually told me, he said, that's not a hen, he said, that's the stork. With his legs worn down to his knees. From landing outside that house. With them 17 chiselers. And I look back to it now and I feel, really, I was innocent, was I not? Weren't we all? We were innocent. Although I suppose old traditions die hard, don't they, look? They die hard, and there we are now. I look at the kids nowadays and, you know, I even see the difference now with children. Their eating habits are totally different now. Whoever thought the day would actually come in our lifetime that you'd have to bribe a child to finish his food? You know, we will finish our turnips and you'll get jelly and ice cream. And if you eat your Brussels sprouts, you get a crunchy. We didn't have to be encouraged. Did we have to be encouraged? Not at all. There was a thing then called hunger. That's right, hunger. Which meant that if you didn't finish it yourself, somebody else would finish it for you. Even if you wanted to finish it, somebody else would finish it for you. I had a sister who had teeth with power steering. Honest to God, you had to count your fingers every time you took your hands away from the table. It was amazing, and that's why, you know, that's why I compare it today. Maybe I'm wrong to compare kids today. Maybe I'm wrong. But I mean, if the children today, like if If the child now wants something to eat, you know, they go over to the fridge, isn't that right? They'll get themselves a yogurt, and of course, if you believe the ads, the yogurt comes out with the spoon in it and everything. And they'll do a little dance and entertain the child before he gets to the yogurt. Or an apple or a piece of cake over to the fridge, isn't that right? Did we have fridges? No. There's no need for them. What was the point in having a fridge? Nothing to put into it. So what was the point in having a fridge? It was we were lucky if the food came into the house. I remember meeting my mother, Lord rest her. I remember we used to meet her halfway down the street with our shopping bag. I found my sister one day eating stuff out of the bag. She was wearing the bag over her head like a mule with a bag of oats. You look at the kids nowadays. There's no point in talking. I find sometimes that they don't be listening to you. My youngest fella now, trying to explain to him, looking in for his breakfast, like any child now, spoiled for choice. Looking in at cornflakes, Rice Krispies, Frosties, fruit and fibre, Special K, Honey Nut Loop, Sugar Puffs, Cocoa Pops, Corn Pops, Banana Bubbles, Shredded Wheat, Weetabix, Alpen, Bran Flakes. And you know what he says? There's nothing there I really liked. Nothing he liked. We would have been glad just to see the box the cornflakes came in. Just to be close to the box, to know what it would have been like. I said to him one day, I said, there's millions of children in Africa today starving. He says, yeah. Name one of them. That's why I look at the children now and I say good luck to them, and God bless them with their lovely shoes and everything else, booties and sneakers and Doc Martens and sandals. We didn't get shoes, children. Our mothers used to paint our feet black and lace our toes together. That was what it was. Your child has an upset tummy now, little bit constant, which can happen. A child can get very bound, you know, you go down, you get them laxatives, syrup of figs, milk of magnesia, Andrews. What did we get? Our mothers used to put us sitting on our potties and tell us ghost stories. Sit down. Sit down, Nana. Are you ready? Dracula got out of the coffin. Does that bring back memories? Oh, what? Ah, yes, they were great days. That's why kids today, they don't understand hand-me-downs. I don't think the children understand hand-me-downs, do they? No, I could write a book on hand-me-downs, just hand-me-downs. I'm the youngest of 9, you know. Youngest of 9, I am. I had 8 older sisters. Yeah. Not fun. Not fun. I remember arriving in school one day in the same dress as the teacher. This is true. Sat in the front of the class, very upset, as you can imagine. And he wasn't too pleased either. He was very upset. Yeah. We had some great times. Had we not got great times, didn't we? I think they were great. The games, we played games out of nothing, isn't that right? When we were kids, a bit of chalk and you could play hopscotch. Who remembers hopscotch? Wasn't that a great game? You did out your chalk out there and you did your squares and your numbers. That was a game you just played out on the old concrete, isn't that true? And the little thing, what was the thing? Can you remember the thing you used to... The piggy, isn't that right? We used to throw it down. What was it? A stone or so. Or a polish box. Well, you couldn't give the kids a polish box now, of course. No way can you give them polish. You can't. The children know what I'm talking about. No, you can't give them polished tins nowadays. And we had so much fun. Even if you ran out of chalk, it was no problem. Sure it wasn't? No, there was always statues in the house. Well, naturally, you had to have great respect for the Sacred Heart and Our Blessed Lady. But St. Anthony came under some pressure in our house. He was on chalk duty most of the time. Do you remember? I think St. Anthony, actually, in our house, he actually learned how to back off. You'd see you walking up to him. Anto, I think they're on chalk duty today. And you'd hear him saying, oh, no. And you bring him out behind you. Remember, you have to smuggle him out and hop him off the windowsill. Ma, St. Anthony's after falling down off the shelf, Ma. I think his head is after coming off. I'll put him under the stairs. And I'll glue it back after. And you get his head then, and you'd run it down the street, and you'd draw your nuts. You'd wear him down as far as his eyebrows. And your mother tried to glue it back. Where's his face? Good days they were. What was it? What was it about the old... I think there was something about when we were young. Maybe it was only in Dublin, but your mother had this obsession about having clean underwear. Does anybody remember that? Remember your mother said, make sure you have clean underwear leaving this house. Does anybody remember that? What was it? It had nothing to do with hygiene or comfort. That's right. Do you know why? In case you get knocked down. You might get knocked down by a bus. This was the reason for having clean underwear. The theory obviously was that, if you were knocked down by a bus, at least when you'd get to the hospital, they'd know you came from a respectable family because your underwear was clean. You may have your head under your arm or your leg over your shoulder, but you'd have clean cacks. This was the whole idea. And that wasn't the theory at all, because it didn't work that way. What they didn't realise was that if you're going to be knocked down by a bus, if you even think you're going to be knocked down by a bus, you see a bus coming at you, and you can't get out of the way. It doesn't matter how clean. I'm serious. You're going to, if you think about it, you're going to shout your head off. And you'll be destroyed when you get to the hospital. Ah, yes, these are the great things. It only goes to show you the way kids think. And my youngest fella told me a very true story. And he said it's about a mother snake. And she lives in the jungle in a semi-detached suburban snake pit. This is the way the young fella told me the joke, my little fella. And he said that the mother snake had 3 baby snakes. And she wanted to go shopping one day, and she didn't want to bring the baby snakes with her to the shop. So she asked them if they wouldn't mind, hissing around the pit until she came home. Yes, hissing around the pit, because snakes do hiss. And they do live in a pit. So they said, fair enough. And she says, if it's a thing that I'm late coming home, she says, I want you to go over to Mrs. Potts' pit and hiss. Because Mrs. Potts was a neighbouring snake who didn't have her own snakes. So they said, fair enough. Hiss around the pit till you come back. If you're late coming home, over to Mrs. Potts' pit to hiss. She said, that's it. So she went off to the shops, and the baby snake started hissing around the pit. And right enough, she's late coming home, and they decide, well, we better stop hissing around our own pit and go over to Mrs. Potts' pit to hiss, because that's what she said. So they stopped hissing around their own pit, went over to Mrs. Potts' pit, and started hissing around Mrs. Potts' pit. Now, they're hissing around Mrs. Potts' pit for ages when Mrs. Potts comes out, sees them hissing around the pit, and really lets a roar. And she frightened the snakes were very upset. She scared them. She said, you can't hiss around my pit. Go back to your own pit and hiss. And they immediately stopped hissing around Mrs. Potts' pit, went back to their own pit and hissed. And they're hissing and crying at the same time when the mother snake came home. And she says, why are you crying? And they said, we were hissing around our pit all day. You said if you're late coming over, go over to Mrs. Potts' pit to hiss. So we went over to Mrs. Potts' pit, and we're hissing around Mrs. Potts' pit, and Mrs. Potts said, go back to your own pit and hiss. And the mother snake says, she has a bloody nerve. She has some nerve. I remember Mrs. Potts when she hadn't got a pit to hiss in. That's kids for you, and it's very, very special. That's why I say to the children today, it's a very important... My 2 youngest boys say, they say things to me from time to time, and one of them said to me there, quite a couple of years ago, in actual fact, he had a little pet rabbit, and he says, what happened if the rabbit died? If he got killed? Well, I said if he died, sure, we'd have a little party for him. And I said, I'd invite all your pals around, and we'd put him in a little box, and we'd bury him at the end of the garden, and I'd give you lemonade and sweeties. He said, can we kill him now? What are kids like? I don't know what kids are like. 1977, in Dublin Zoo, the Indian elephant escaped. And it was unheard of for this type of an event to happen. And there was a lot of embarrassment. People were very upset that the elephant escaped. But to make matters worse, it went missing for 2 weeks. Now, we're talking about an elephant. If it was a penguin, maybe, or an ostrich or something, we're talking about a 5.5-ton elephant going missing for 2 weeks. And it ended up in County Galway, which even makes it worse. And I could never understand like how nobody's seen it going through Turtle's Pass or somewhere like that, or Athlone before the bypass. I could never understand. And it ended up in Connemara, out in Clifton, in Mrs. Murphy's back garden. And I want you to visualise, if you will, that Mrs. Murphy is a woman now. She's a very, very senior lady. She's no television. She didn't buy magazines. She really didn't leave the village ever in her life. So she didn't know what an elephant was. She hadn't a clue. She'd seen sheep and cows and hens and ducks and dogs and cats. But she'd never seen an elephant. So I want you to visualise what happens when the elephant comes into her back garden. She's just come in, where she's pulled a few heads of cabbage for the husband's dinner, and she's washing them at the sink. When the elephant comes in, and she gets a little bit distressed. Elephant comes in like this. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Seamus. I'm glad his name was Seamus. Seamus. Come out quick. There's a beast out in the back garden. Honestly, don't be cutting yourself. There's only Dordan's bull from up the road. Bull. It's the size of 6 bulls. What's he doing? He's pulling up heads of cabbage with his tail. Oh, that's a good one. And what's he doing with the heads of cabbage? If I told you, you wouldn't believe. Oh, God. That poor unfortunate woman. Who's in form for a song? Come on. Mary, hold the candle steady while I shave the chicken's lip. How's it going there? How's it going there? I can never see the audience, but I know you're there. I always close my eyes in case there's someone in the audience I owe money to. You never know. Well, no, Connemara. Oh, Connemara. Well, how's it going and how's the crack? I went down there and I turned back. I went through Galway one fine day, saw a guard upon his way. He was riding a bike through Ware Square. I appeared from I don't know where. Don't know where I was going, or where I was coming from. The guard was on the bike. And I noticed his face covered in pain. It was only then I realised there was no saddle on the bike. I said, how's it going there, guard, and how's the crack? He wasn't too pleased with me choice of words. I said, how do you ride a bike with no saddle? Says he, very bloomin' carefully, I know. Well, to me bada. Oh, to me, bada. Well, how's it going and how's the crack? I came through Limerick on the way back. Met the five-legged woman from out the road towards Clare. I never met a woman before with 5 legs. She had a leg here, another one there, another one here, another one there, and one to spare. I could hardly keep up with her, she was moving so fast. She was like Spider-Woman. And I noticed she was crying. I said, what are you crying for? You have a lovely pair of legs and a half. She says, I can never get shoes to match. I said, it could be worse. At least your knickers fit like a glove. She wasn't totally. And oh, kill Chandra. Oh, kill Chandra. Well, how's the crack and how's it going? I went down there to the town of Athlone. I was on the road out to Roscommon. Saw this fine-looking girl walking along the road, and I was rather amazed. She was walking along beside a cow on a rope. And I says to her, what's a fine-looking girl like you doing with an old cow like that? She says, I'm taking the cow to the bull. I said, could your father not do that? She says, no, it has to be the bull. Fair play to your father. Says, I will know. Multi-farnham. Oh, multi-farnham. Well, how's it going and how's the crack? I came through Dunlavin on the way back. And I knocked on a small little house's door. And I said to the woman, one of your hens has stopped laying. She says, how do you know? I says, I'm after driving over it with the car. Oh, she says, it goes to show you're a Dublin Jackeen. She says, that's not a hen at all, it's a cockerel. I said, well, in that case, I'd like to replace it for you. She says, you can please yourself. The hens are out the bag. Well, no, Connemara. Up you by ya. Quite recently, I was on the way back from the United States, and I was on my way back, and naturally, very excited, very anxious to see herself, and I came back, unfortunately, on a charter. The flight that I wanted wasn't available, so I got on. I'll never forget it. I was so nervous getting on the plane that I phoned my wife beforehand, and I said, the usual thing, hello, darling, how are you? She's going, woo. I said, I keep thinking about you. Ever since I left home, I said, you're on my mind. She's going, woo. I said, I keep thinking about the last time we made mad, passionate love together. And she's going, woo, who is this? I mean, what are you supposed to do? I have a doctor, and I can't mention his name. Naturally enough, we can't mention it. And my grandmother, God bless her heart, 93 years of age. Isn't that fantastic? 93 years of age, my grand. Yes, indeed, 93. And she could tell you stories, but she used to send my granddad, Lord rest him, she used to send him to the doctor regularly for checkups. I'm not living with half a man. Go to the doctor and make sure you're working. And the poor man used to go to this doctor, and very strange doctor now, I don't mind telling you. He gave a man 6 months to live, and the man couldn't pay his bill, he gave him another 6 months. I can't understand. How can a doctor do something like this? He was treating a woman in Dublin for 3 years for yellow jaundice before he realised she was Japanese. Now, this is a strange doctor. And my poor grandfather went to the doctor, and naturally enough, he was very, very, he was nervous. And the doctor checked him out, and he gave him all the tests and the stress test, and he gave him the BCG, the ECG, the BBC, ITV, RTE, and VHI. And after examining him, he says, you're perfect. He says, you have a body, he says, of a 50-year-old, he says. What age are you? And the grandfather said, 75. Well, he says, you're the body of a 55-year-old man. He says, I can't believe it is, you're perfect. He says, how do you feel generally? Oh, no problem. He says, are you regular? Do you go, oh, regular as clockwork. Every morning I'm down for... He said, you don't have to tell us, just once we know you're regular. Yeah. Good, said the doctor. He said, and what about your, your waterworks department? He says, are you regular? The wee-wee? Oh, no problem. Several times during the day I do me wee-wee. And in actual fact, I'm out of the bed at 3 o'clock every morning, religiously out of the bed, downstairs to do me wee-wee. And not only that, but God himself turns the light on for me when I'm going. And turns it off when I'm finished. So the doctor is going, this fella's not the full shilling. Rings up the granny, says, I just checked out your husband, and I don't think he's playing with the full deck. What do you mean? Well, he said, I don't think the lift is going all the way to the top floor here. I think he might be losing whatever bit of sense he has. She said, what do you mean? He said, well, I asked him, he says he gets out of the bed at 3 o'clock in the morning to do his wee-wee. And he said God turned the light on for him and turned and said, she can't. Don't tell me he's piddling in the fridge again. Don't tell me he's peeing in the fridge. Don't tell me he's peeing in the fridge again. And romance is something, I mean, here we are talking about marriage and grandmothers and children and everything. Romance is something I can honestly tell you here tonight, myself and the missus. You know, we have rows and arguments like everybody else, but, you know, we never sleep on a row. That's the secret. Never go to bed on an argument. And, you know, although once we were up for 6 months, I'll never forget that night. It was a long night. And there's nothing I wouldn't do for my wife, and nothing she wouldn't do for me. Isn't that nice? Yeah, that's how we go through life. Do nothing for each other. We went one time to a beautiful romantic restaurant, and myself and her, this was very romantic, and all the tables had the candles lit, and we're very excited, sitting down, little table for two. And as we sat down, there was a couple sitting opposite us in the other corner at a table for two. And they were kind of being romantic. They were making eyes at each other, and they were, you know, doing footsies under the table and holding hands and doing body language. You know, years ago we called it chatting up. But you know body language, you know. Doing all this sort of stuff at each other. Sicken you, wouldn't it? And the next minute, out of the blue, the two of them are there, and the next minute, I thought your man was doing a limbo dance. He starts to slide like this. And he slides down like this. And he slides right down under the table. I couldn't believe it. Right under the table he goes, disappears. And I'm saying to the wife, and your woman just sat there smoking as if nothing had happened. Your man underneath the table. So I said, I said, somebody's going to have to say something. I said, excuse me. I said, excuse me, missus. I said, in case you don't know, I says, we're here, I says. And she just sat there as if I was saying nothing. I said, excuse me, I says, for your information. I said, your husband, I says, has just slipped down, I says, underneath the table, I said. And she says, oh no, that's where you're wrong. She says, my husband has just walked in the door. Oh, God. He remembers the first time he met her. He remembers the first thing she said. He remembers the first time he held her on the night that they said they'd be wed. He remembers her sweet way of saying, honey, has something gone wrong? He remembers the fun and the teasing, and the reason he wrote her this song. I'll give you a daisy a day, dear. I'll give you a daisy a day. I love you until the rivers run still, and the four winds we know blow away. Now they'd walk down the street in the evening, and for years I would see them go by. For their love, it was more than the clothes that they wore could be seen in the gleam of their eyes. As a kid, they would take me for candy, and I'd love to go tagging along. We'd hold hands while we'd walk to the corner. Then the old man would sing her his song. I'll give you a daisy a day, dear. I'll give you a daisy a day. I'll love you until the rivers run still and the four winds we know blow away. Now he walks down the street in the evening and he stops by the old candy store, and I somehow believe he's believing that he's holding her hand like before, for he feels all her love walking with him, and he smiles at the things she might say. Then the old man goes up to the hilltop and he gives her a daisy a day. I'll give you a daisy a day, dear. I'll give you a daisy a day. I'll love you until the rivers run still and the four winds we know blow away. Two bachelors down, I can't mention the name of the town where they come from. I visualise these two fellas having the few drinks. They go off, they're living beside each other in two little cottages, and they've never really been anywhere before. So they decide to go to the Ballinasloe horse fair to buy themselves a couple of donkeys. And off they go, and they buy a couple of donkeys, and they're on their way home, and they're riding the two donkeys back, and they're passing by this beautiful modern pub. Beautiful bar. And they decide, we'll go in here. So they tie the two donkeys outside, and in they go, and they're sitting down at the counter. Now, you can imagine these fellas have never seen electricity before. They didn't even see carpet, because they'd no carpet in their own cottage. And they're going, my God, look at that. The holy indoor grass. Look at that, mate. You got red grass. I never saw that before. And they're looking around, and they come up to the counter to have their few drinks. And when they go up to the counter, needless to say, they're very, very upset. Because right behind the bar are mirrors. It's mirrored from wall to wall. These fellas have never seen mirrors in their lives. Even when they'd be shaving at home, one lad would come into the other and describe it to him as he was going through the motions. So they're sitting down having a couple of drinks looking in the mirrors like that. They're drinking away for an hour, and one fella says, Michael, have a look. There's two lads, and they're looking at us since we came in. Have a look across now, don't look now. They know us, have a look, they know us. And they're saluting the two fellas. The other fella says, I think they know us. They're looking at us and they're saluting. Goes on for another hour, drinking. And eventually one fella gets down off the stool and he's walking away, and his friend says, where are you going? He says, I'm going over to buy them a drink. The other fella says, come back, I think they're coming over to buy a drink for us. Nobody believes this story. People think I make this up. The two of them are ossified. Look, and one fella eventually says, hey, Michael, tell me this and tell me no more. Was it was it you or your brother was drowned at sea? The other fella had to think. So you have me there. But you must have been me brother. I was never at sea in my life. And one guy goes before the other, and as sure as goodness he played a joke on his friend on the way home. He went outside, got his own donkey unyoked, and he took the other fella's donkey and untied it and turned it around back to front and tied him by the tail to the post. And he met his pal the following day. Well, Michael, how did you get on last night? Honestly, don't talk to me. I had my belly full of drink. And when I come out of the pub, some dirty blackguard was after cutting the head off of my donkey. And I had to ride the donkey home with my finger stuck in his windpipe the whole way home. By golly, had he bad breath. Small little town down in County Clare. Very, very small town in County Clare. But it seemed that the women in this small town were carrying on. Whatever you want to use in your imagination, have an extraterrestrial relationship. And the poor old parish priest's heart was broke. The parish priest's heart was broke because he was listening to the confessions every Saturday night, and these women coming in. Bless me, Father, for I had sinned, but I had my hanky-panky last week of my and I had hanky-panky. And the next woman, bless me, Father, for I had sinned, but I had hanky-panky last week and joined up my heart. And I had hanky. It was all hanky-panky, hanky-panky. And the priest got fed up with it. He got fed up. And he got on the pulpit one morning. He says, look, he says, if you can't cut out this habit, he says, for goodness sake, have respect for me. He said, for goodness sake, would you please change the word hanky-panky? He said, just say I fell. He said, I will know exactly what you're talking about. And it didn't stop them. They still came in the confession every Saturday night. Bless me, Father, for I had sinned, but I fell last week with John Joe Mahoney. I fell last week up my cloak to it. And the next one, bless me, Father, for I had sinned, but I fell last week up my It was all fell. And that priest became ill. And they had to take him off to the hospital. And they sent down this other priest to take his place. And the new priest didn't get a chance to meet the old priest. So we didn't get to know that there was a word switch in operation in the parish. And you can visualise him now sitting down every Saturday night, and the women going, bless me, Father, for I had sinned, but I fell last week with John Jimmy Hackey, and I fell last week with Michael O'Toole and Brian McKeaney, and I fell, and it was all I fell. And the new priest couldn't stand it. He said, this is ridiculous. He said, this town, he says, is rubbish. He said, somebody is going to have to take responsibility for this. And he went to the council meeting on the Monday night. And he waited till they were all sitting down, waffling at each other. And he stood up and he says, I don't know whether you realise it or not, he says, but he says, I am the new priest in this parish. And someone, he says, is going to have to take responsibility for the disgraceful condition of the footpaths in this here town. He said, there's women falling morning, noon, and night. And somebody will have to take responsibility. And of course, the whole chamber erupted into laughter. And everybody laughed their heads out because they all knew the old priest and they knew there was a word change. And the county councillor himself nearly had to be carried out. He was laughing so much. And the priest looked at him. He says, I don't know why you're laughing, sir. He said, your wife fell 3 times last week.
Dublin Town, there lives a girl fairer than the flower I'm wearing, Rose Donahue, all fresh and new, and I love her past all caring. And there she goes, my rings and rose, in God's garden there's none rarer. And there she goes, my rings and rose, Dublin town has seen none fairer. Sweet 17, my seamstress queen, she's no bigger than a thimble, soft satin skin, street Arab's grin. Sure, she makes the work look simple. And there she goes, my rings and rose. In God's garden there's none rarer. And there she goes, my rings and rose. Dublin town has seen none fairer. 3 yards of lace to walk with grace, and a golden ring she's asking. The saving slow, but still I know that our love is everlasting. And there she goes, my rings and rose. In God's garden there's none rarer. And there she goes, my rings and rose. Dublin town has seen none fairer. And there she goes, my rings and rose. In God's garden there's none rarer. And there she goes, my rings and rose. Dublin town has seen none fairer.
People sometimes say, is this fella still with you or whatever? And I want to tell you that he is. This particular fella has, in actual fact, been my pal. Do you know who I'm talking about? There's a butler. Right. Where's my stand? Right. Right. No, that's posh. Right. Who said right? Dickie Rock. But I wasn't a happy child. I got no love. We were very, very, very poor. We were very, very poor. No, we were poorer than that. We were so poor we thought knives and forks was jewellery. I remember when we went along to feed the ducks, we were so poor the ducks used to throw the bread back at us. Because I wasn't a happy child. Yeah, see, I was born when my mother was ill. Yeah, my mammy wasn't expecting me at all. Someone said to me, mammy, one day, said, "Are you expecting?" She says, "No, carrying it for a friend." And we were very unfortunate. See, the thing about it was, I remember we had lovely neighbours. We had a lovely neighbour. I remember the woman next door to us, and she was very, very nice. She was very she was a dirty old cow. Our house was very... Our house was so dirty that the mice used to wear overalls. You had to wipe your feet leaving the house. That's how dirty it was. And the walls of our house were very, very thin. Very thin. I opened up the oven one day and I found a fella next door dipping his bread in our gravy. But I tried to be good, because I was a happy child. Even though we were poor, we were miserable. We weren't happy at all. We weren't happy. And see, my mammy didn't even know she was stagnant. Or pregnant. She didn't know she was pregnant. See, and all the women didn't know they were pregnant. My mammy just thought she was putting on weight. And it was the woman next door who told her that she'd have to, she said, I think I'm going to have a baby. So my mammy said, where? And the woman said, here, if you don't get to the hospital, now. And we were very, very lucky that this particular woman, her husband was a baker, and he had a bread van. So he said he'd drive me mammy to the Eternity Hospital. Well, he was a baker. He knew the bun in the oven. Well, you know. What can you expect? He used his loaf, didn't he? And there was me mammy in the back of the bread van going to the Eternity Hospital. And when the van driver came to the hospital, there was a big sign on the gate and it said, all deliveries around the back. And my mammy was brought in through the laundry department. I'll never forget it if I live to be normal. So they put me mammy on the trolley bed. And she's lying down on the trolley bed, and there was 4 other women up in the eternity ward. And my mammy was 6, or 5. And they were all up there, and 3 of them went in and had their babies before me mammy. And she got very upset, she did. And she said to the nurse, come here, she says, Swanhead, come here. She says, I was here before those 3. Now she said, you can do me next. As if you could change. So, and anyway, my mammy she just hiccuped, and there I was. Yeah, I was, but I was an ugly little. I'll tell you what I was. I was a very ugly child. Yeah, and my mammy didn't want me. My mammy kept saying, that's not my child. She said, put that child back, she said. And give me 2 smaller ones. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? And I tell you, I got my eyes full, I did. I got my eyes full because the nurse, only for the nurse, now I don't know what would have happened. So the nurse put me straight into the incinerator. The incubator, yeah, the incubator, not the incinerator. No wonder the arse was burned off. It was So, I'm lying down in the incubator. I'm right outside the eternity ward, and I learned more that day than I did since. And you go through a lot, don't you, girls? Don't you go through a lot? Don't you go through a lot having oh, God, I don't know how you have babies. God Almighty, I'll never forget that poor Mrs. Mulligan. Mrs. Mulligan came into the Eternity Hospital and merciful hour. She was everywhere. This woman, God bless her, said, this woman is going to have a family. And that this woman's going to have her grandchildren and all at the same time. And I'll tell you the truth, I wasn't far out. Do you know what she had? Sexy tuplets. Sexy tuplets. I swear she had sexy tuplets. That's the technical term for 6 babies. A lot of people don't know that. Sexy tuplets. 6 babies. Or 3 sets of twins, if you can't remember sets of twins. Or 2 sets of triplets. It's much the same. Or even twins and quadruplets. Once it's 6, okay? Or quintuplets and an only child. 6. True. Yeah. A little. So she came in. And there was no lights in the Eternity Hospital. There wasn't a light, the electricity was gone. So all they had was a flashlight. A flashlamp was all they had. There was the doctor, the nurse, and the middle wife. And the flash lamp, and God bless us all, the doctor, the sweat was dripping out of him. Oh, the Presbyterian was running down his chest. And he's there, and after he delivered the fourth child, he started to panic. Because, I mean, he wasn't expecting half of them. And he delivered the fourth, and when he seen the fifth child coming into the world, he grabbed the flash lamp and said, oh, God, he said, the light is attracting them, he said. He ran. But I wasn't really happy, I wasn't. Because I remember the other woman that came in. She was very unfortunate. There was always people unfortunate. But I remember now, for instance, when I was only young, my sister had an unfortunate problem. God bless us all. Very unfortunate. Nothing happened in there. She was a teenager and no development. Washerboard chest. And she was very embarrassed, and she was so embarrassed she couldn't go for one of them herself. The bra thing. And she sent me for the... Imagine asking me to go and get one of them. Because I was only a young fella, I didn't even know the name of them. And I went into the Lincoln Jury department. I'm in the Lincoln Jury department, and the lady was there. A lovely lady. Now, God bless us all, she really was. And she's standing there. And I went over to her and I said, my sister looking for the thing that you wear. And the lady says, oh, a big portrait? She's very posh. I said, she's looking for the, a holder. For holding what? I said, not an awful lot, actually, today. Or a bit of gear, I said, She's looking for the sling.
Oh, you mean a brazier?
I said, yeah, a brazier, I said.
Oh, she says, what bust?
I said, nothing, it just wore it was fine. That's because I didn't know.
No, she said, what size?
Now, how would I know? I was only a young fella. I mean, the only size I knew was 26 by 1 3/8. That was the only thing I ever knew. The tire off me bike. Remember that? 26 by 1 3/8. And I said to her, I don't really know. And she says, well, I can't give you one unless I knew the approximate size. She says, could you describe? Is it like a grapefruit? I know, so they wouldn't be like grapefruit now. I said, I made them be honest with you. I said, she'd like them to be like grapefruit.
She says, what about an orange?
No. Not even an outspan, I said. An egg? Who says an egg? Fried. And what she said... Well, it wasn't easy for us. It wasn't easy for us when we were kids. Sure, it wasn't easy for us when we were kids. No, I didn't know anything. And I remember, it was difficult, trying to think, the things that we didn't know. I remember coming out of the chapel one day, and when we came out, because my mammy was at the giving out to me when I was in the chapel, because I was trying to get the money back. I brought candles in, you see, and I was trying to get the money out for the candles. There were candles I got in another chapel. I was going to do a trade-in, and the knife was getting caught in the slot. And we came out of the chapel, and I'll never forget it. It's something that still sticks out with me mind. There was 2 dogs outside the chapel. There was these 2 dogs, and they were very, very close. Well, they were quite attached, and I came out. And I was looking at the 2 dogs, and I said to my mammy, I said, what are them dogs doing? She said, don't be looking at them. Look over at the statue of Christ. Don't be looking at them. Look over. And I could see, like, and I knew, I mean, I wasn't in Egypt. I knew, and they were soaking. Oh, the water was dripping off them. There was people putting buckets of water on them and all. I thought they would have to be on fire or something. You know, hot dogs. So I said, now, there's something strange here. And you could see, I mean, like, they went side by side now. They were close to the, you know, there was a kind of a front dog, kind of, and there was a back dog as well. And I thought that the front dog was after telling a joke to the back dog. But the back dog was kind of roaring and laughing, he was. He'd go, I said, oh my God. And I said to me, Mammy, she said, well, I'll tell you. I said, do you see the dog in the front? She said, not well. She said, the other dog is pushing her to the hospital. Now, a lot of people don't believe some of my stories because they think I made them up. But really and truly, because I come from a large family, I do. Yeah, there's only two of us, but we were huge. And I remember in school, we had one teacher that we didn't really like. Now, we didn't like most of them. And some of the lads are here from James Street School tonight, and they could back me up when I say that. Am I right or wrong? There was a few teachers now we felt a bit strange about. Now, we had one teacher in particular, and every time he'd be walking down the classroom, he'd say, OK, you do that. You do that, and you do that. And when you go home tonight, do that. And he'd give us our homework, and we'd have to do that, do that, do that. So we called him Do That. That was the name that stuck to him, Do That. And we'd all kind of say, here comes Do That. So one day, Do That is writing on the board at the front of the classroom, and he's writing down things on it. And I'll never forget it. Didn't he have an awful accident? Because he kind of had his back to us when he was writing on the board. And he got this unmerciful clatter right in the back of the skull. I'll never forget it. And I mean, we were all sitting down. The desk just came through the air on its own. And one of the lads even said that, you know, the desk got very agitated. And it got angry, and the desk just kind of jumped over the classroom, and we couldn't stop it. And I hit him in the back of the head. And the next minute, Do That, oh, he just slid down the board like that. He went down like a ton of Do That. So when he slid down, we all kind of went, oh, Do That down. And the headmaster was going by, and he stuck his head in through the door, you see, and he kind of looked around, and he said, where's Do That? And me kind of said, Do That down. He said, Do That down where? And we kind of said, Do That down there. And he said, what's Do That doing down there? And we said, Do That down there dead. And he said, are you telling me Do That down there dead as Dodo? And we said, Do That down there dead as Dodo, don't you doubt that. And he said, OK. Who did that to do that? He said, did you do that to do that? Or did you do that to do that? And we said, we didn't do that to do that. He said, OK. Well, he said, somebody's going to have to tell Do That. Do That's wife that Do That's dead. So Mrs. Do That will have to be told. And Hatcher Corrigan put his hand up, he said, I'll tell her. He said, you're telling nothing. He said, you're a troublemaker. He said, if you can just cast your mind back, he says, to the last teacher that was killed in this classroom. You nearly killed his wife as well. Walking up to her in the supermarket. He said, are you the widow O'Shaughnessy? She says, no. He said, do you want to bet? There's no way to break the news. So Rasha Flanagan said, and Rasha was very gentle. He said, I'll tell Mrs. Duda dead, and I'll break it gently. And on his way home that evening, he called into Duda's house. And he knocked on the door, and Mrs. Duda came down. And she opened the door in her nightdress. No, funny place to have a door. And he said, are you Mrs. Duda? She said, yeah. He says, are you married to Mr. Duda? He says, yeah. He says, guess who died in school today? Duda, Duda.